It is March Madness season, and you know what that means. We gotta bust out the bracket videos. And maybe the first of many, I wanna start where I'm from and with a lot of the rappers that I love. So we're gonna determine who's the best new gen Atlanta rapper. Now, I specifically said new gen because rappers from like 2000s like T.I., Ludacris, even Outkast, they were before I really started listening to rap. So I wouldn't be able to make an argument for them. And to be honest, they're like in their own lane because the Atlanta sound has changed so much since they were popping. That's like a whole separate argument. Now, I just chose from like 2010 forward, which I know is like a long time. It's not really new gen, but that's like I said when the sound shifted, and that's when it became what it is now. It's gonna be 8 rappers, and they're gonna be Future versus Young Thug, Yachty versus Cardi, Lil Baby versus Gunna, and Migos versus 21 Savage. And yes, 21 counts as an Atlanta rapper. He's from the UK, but he makes Atlanta rap music. First up, we got Future versus Young Thug. Now, they are really insanely equal. They make very similar music. They're both equally as good. You know, they've collaborated before, and they've both been dropping music from like 2011, 2012. So they've been in the game for a long time. And truthfully, this just comes down to personal preference and who you prefer. I feel like Future is more consistent. Just over time, he's been dropping a lot more great music compared to Young Thug. I mean, compare their latest projects. That album that Young Thug dropped wasn't that great. Granted, he is in jail and was in jail when it came out, so that could explain why it wasn't as good. And the album that Future just dropped with Metro was fucking fire. But ultimately, personal preference, like I said, to me, Future's better. So he's gonna move on. Next, we got Lil Yachty versus Cardi. Now, at first, I don't think they seem like a good people to pit against each other, but honestly, they have a lot more similarities than you think. Now, stylistically, they're not really similar, like, at all, but they both came out of the SoundCloud era at the same time around 2016, and since then, they've both evolved a lot, especially Yachty. Back in 2016, no one really took Lil Yachty seriously. He dropped a bunch of, like, young teenage music, and now he's switched it up. Now he drops, like, lyrical songs that are a complete 180 from what he used to do, but throughout those 2 gaps, there was a lot of changes. Like, he dropped Let's Start Here, which is like a psychedelic sound. Basically, he evolved a lot. Now, Cardi has also evolved a lot, but he has a lot less music to show that. He's only dropped like 3 albums, but each one is pretty fucking different. I guess Self-Titled and Die Lit are remotely similar, but Whole Lotta Red is completely different. His next album, I Am Music, is completely different. And although I'm not a huge fan of the newest Cardi music, like Whole Lotta Red or I Am Music, I think you still gotta give it to Cardi, even though Yachty has definitely improved the best out of both of them. But Cardi really focuses on his discography and making it as perfect as he can, which is why he drops so little. So to me, Cardi wins this, and I think a lot of you are gonna agree. Next, we got Lil Baby versus Gunna, who came up at the same time. They used to be insanely frequent collaborators. They dropped fucking hits, and not one person carried the other in all those songs. Obviously, one of them would have a shining moment here and there, but not one person dominated. Now, this one is interesting to me because I have people online that I talk to about music, and they shit all over Gunna, and I have to defend them because I do fuck with Gunna, and I think he definitely has talent, especially melodically, and I think people just look at Lil Baby's lyricism and flows and automatically think he's better than Gunna, apart from the fact that they just find Gunna boring, which is ridiculous to me. But then my IRL friends are like the complete opposite. They love Gunna, and they don't think Lil Baby is really that good, and with them, I gotta defend Lil Baby. So basically, I've played both sides with this in multiple occasions, so I've learned both their strengths and weaknesses for each one of them. And to me, Lil Baby is a better lyricist, and in a lot of songs he flows better, especially like Pride is the Devil and Wants and Needs. And his feature game is great, but there's also some misses where he just does not even try. Now, Gunna is pretty fucking consistent with his features. You kind of know what you're gonna get with him, and if you fuck with him, you're gonna like it. And recently, Gunna has been better than Lil Baby. Ever since Gunna got out of jail, he's been kind of riding the game solo, and he's dropped hits. Like his album that everyone thought was gonna be ass because it was gonna be a solo album, since the whole snitching allegations really held him back in the industry from collaborating. But instead, he shut everyone up, and he dropped really great albums. While Lil Baby hasn't really dropped anything worth mentioning in the past like 2-3 years. But before that, I think definitely Lil Baby was better than Gunna. And although I think Gunna is now very much closing the gap, especially because he's kind of slowly evolving his sound to be better, I think for this conversation, if we're talking in general, you have to move on Lil Baby. But honestly, give it a year and this could shift. Next, we have a pretty unconventional round with Migos versus 21 Savage. Pitting them against each other is very, very weird, but they both very much deserve to be mentioned for the Atlanta crown. Now, Migos are one of the pioneers that really influenced and changed what trap sounded like, or they at least popularized it and made it very much mainstream. And throughout the course of that, they would fucking drop bangers. And with each one, it's not like one of them outshined the other. Ever since they popped out and got really, really popular, till even now, people still debate who's the better Migo? At first it was Quavo because his hooks were fucking crazy. Then people started giving Offset hella attention because his verses are crazy, and he started doing solo work. And ever since Takeoff passed away, people have gone back and realized really how talented he was and how underrated he was throughout his entire career with Migos. That argument really tells you one thing. They were all a piece of this Migos puzzle, and without one of them, they weren't Migos. Now, when you go over to 21 Savage, he popped out, made bangers, made fucking hits, and really proved he could make great music. And there was a point where he was kind of getting stale, like with the Issa album, but then he popped out and musically matured. And ever since then, he's very much shifted the public opinion, and people started realizing how great of an artist he was. So much so that every artist wanted a feature from him. And it's gotten to the point now where people are tired of seeing him on songs, but that just really shows how great he is. Now, they're both great trap artists, and to a degree, they make similar music. And as much as I love 21 Savage, I think I have to give it to Migos because they got me into rap in the first place. All their hits in the early 2010s, I ate them bitches up. I fucking loved them. And look, maybe a lot of y'all will disagree. I don't really blame y'all, but the time where they were popping up, dominating the world, it was insane. And the sound they brought to the mainstream, what they did essentially led to artists like 21 Savage, and about half of the other people I'm even talking about today were influenced by them. So naturally, I don't think I can give this to 21 without giving it to Migos. So Migos move on. To move on to the finals, now we got Future versus Lil Baby. And this is a pretty easy one. Although, like I said, Lil Baby is great, and he's dropped really good songs. He hasn't really had longevity in his career, while Future has an insane longevity, and people still love to hear his new music. I don't think there's any person that would choose Lil Baby over Future, so Future moves on to the finals. Now this matchup is very weird. We got Cardi versus Migos. Musically, they really don't compare at all, apart from maybe like Self-Titled. Even though they don't have a lot of overlap in their sound, I would have loved to have heard a Cardi and Migos song, because if Uzi worked with them, then Cardi could have too back then. But that's besides the point. Look, part of me wants to give this to Migos, but to try to be somewhat unbiased, you gotta look at the sound that they've each made and how much rap in general has shifted. Now maybe like 10 to 7 years ago you would give this to Migos, but with how much the Atlanta sound is even changing right now, it's pretty much all because of Playboi Carti. So even though it hurts me, I think Cardi moves on. Now we're at the final, Future versus Cardi. Here's where it gets very tough. They're both very much equal when it comes to how much the new rappers are influenced by them and how many of them want to like essentially copy what they've done. Future has been around for so long that his style and the things he does in music have always been kind of like copied, or at least taken and changed to kind of create this other new sound. Now Cardi is in the process of doing this himself. You saw it with Rage, and now you're seeing a bunch of rappers doing deep voice. So when it comes to influence, they're pretty equal. But I think if you're gonna put the crown on somebody, it has to be more than just influence. It has to be, who do people think of when you hear Atlanta rap? And I think between these two, most people are gonna think of Future. He is a staple in rap, not just Atlanta rap. And throughout all these albums he's dropped, he still hasn't dropped a lot of mid or bad, which is crazy because look at someone like Lil Wayne, Eminem, and even Kanye now. There's definitively bad albums from them and genuinely bad songs from them. And you never hear anyone bring up like a bad Future album or song. And it's simply because he's just that good. And even as rap as a whole, for the past 15 years, if you're doing a Mount Rushmore, because he has dominated with the quality of music he drops, and he doesn't starve his fans for it. So without a doubt, Future gets the Atlanta rap crown. And it's gonna be very tough for someone to take him down, because 10 plus years later, he's still dropping the heat. Let me know if you want me to do another city and what rappers I should do for that city. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all next week.